After climbing Mont Blanc, I'm feeling really excited and I'm feeling good now. As soon as I was on that final stretch climbing up Mont Blanc, it's a narrow path that you're climbing, and I felt myself get very overwhelmed actually. I was kind of crying inside my sunglasses, and I was thinking about actually the summit letters I was carrying to the top, and just that I was almost there. So once I reached it, it was just like an overwhelming feeling of happiness. So in terms of preparation for the mountain, I do a lot of strength training, different cardiovascular exercise, and hiking outdoors. So that was what I do to mostly prep. I also do altitude training. So I use a mask to simulate a higher altitude, so less oxygen, to help me with acclimatization. So I was doing those types of things. And then in terms of the bleeding disorder, it was making sure I was treating appropriately every week just to maintain my good fitness and health, make sure that everything was feeling okay. And it was prepping all of those medications to bring with me as well, so that I had all of that to use for on the mountain. I think it's important to share that side of it, because a lot of people, when they're preparing for the mountain, you know, they're thinking about their gear that they have to take and snacks and their own fitness level and all of that kind of thing. But this kind of adds a whole nother level to it. So, you know, making sure I've got all the product I need, the supplies I need, making sure it's going to not freeze as I'm going up the mountain as well. Those are kind of all important things. And then even just thinking about, okay, where am I going to treat on the mountain? So they just add a different level. I think it's definitely a mindset piece as well, and just being, I think you're a little maybe more nervous about injuring yourself or something like that. I ended up with a lot of bruises, but that's par for the course. But at the same time, those are things you're also thinking about, and then just making sure that you manage. There was a moment I doubted I might make it, actually. Yeah, it was just, it's a long time. The summit night starts at 2:30 a.m. So you're waking up in the middle of the night and in the dark and starting through, you know, the snow and ice, and there was some challenging sections, and it felt very long. So yeah, there were times where I was like, oh, I don't know if I can do it. But then you tell yourself, no, one step ahead, just keep going. A couple reasons, I guess. One, I really enjoy mountaineering in general, and I also am a big advocate for women and girls with bleeding disorders. And so I thought this is a really great way to combine the two, and you know, use the mountains to amplify that message, because it does bring attention when you're climbing big mountains. But then I can try and use that for something good. Project Elevate Her is a multi-year global initiative. So it's taking place over the next 3 years. And my goal is to climb all 7 summits and ski to the South Pole. And this is to help raise awareness and funds for women and girls living with bleeding disorders. All of the funds raised are going towards 5 different patient organizations that I'm partnering with around the world, which is amazing. And you know, our goal overall is just to improve quality of life. I would really hope that, yeah, any girls or women who see what I'm doing can recognize that, you know, we have challenges maybe having a bleeding disorder, but it doesn't have to limit you. And you can still achieve whatever it is that you want to achieve, whatever mountain you want to climb, you can still do it. It's just having the proper support, the care, the treatment that we need, and we can achieve big things. So I think it's important to show both sides. There's like a very big sense of accomplishment when you climb a mountain and successfully and get back down safely, and you feel great about that. So it's definitely showing that, you know, positive aspect of things. But also I think it's important to, yeah, show some of the hard aspects and the things that are challenges or that I've struggled with as well, because it's not all sunshine and rainbows. But Definitely. I think the lack of women that are diagnosed is a big problem, and there's a lot of women I think that are suffering in silence, and they just are assuming that it's normal, or they've been told not to worry about it, so they are just pushing through and trying to manage on their own. And I think it's important by sharing stories of women and their diagnosis journey, it helps others maybe recognize something in themselves, and then maybe they can go and get the appropriate help. So for women, a lot of women living with bleeding disorders, a big issue for them is heavy menstrual bleeding, and it affects them on a daily basis or on a monthly basis for sure. And 1 in 5 women that have heavy menstrual bleeding have an underlying bleeding disorder, but they just haven't been diagnosed. So it's the bleeding, I guess the heavy menstrual bleeding is one aspect, but they can also have like nosebleeds or dental bleeding or joint or muscle issues as well. And so all of these things can compound and really affect a person's quality of life and their ability to participate in sport or go to school or do certain jobs. So I think once you can get that understood and you can get a diagnosis of what's going on, then you can start to manage it appropriately. I think it's just maybe beyond the physical, it's like that mental aspect of it. It's, constantly just reminding yourself, oh yeah, I got to be aware of this, right? I can't just necessarily go ahead and do whatever without thinking about that. So it's having that conscious, knowing of that, okay, this is what I have to do to help manage. The 7-2-1 rule is such an easy way to explain what heavy menstrual bleeding is for women, because it's very inconsistent kind of across the board of what that means. So 7 stands for bleeding longer than 7 days. The 2 stands for having to change a pad or tampon more than every 2 hours, and the 1 stands for passing the size of clots that are the size of like a loony or something like that. I would definitely tell her to contact her family doctor or her gynecologist if she has one, and bring up those things, the 7-2-1 that she's struggling with, and ensure that she doesn't take no for an answer and continue to push, because often it's easy to be dismissed. So women's data has been lacking kind of across the board in terms of health, in terms of research inclusion, just data, and really they're missing in terms of the registries and with bleeding disorders specifically. So this has to change at some point so that we can start to gather this data and this information. And part of that, I think, is when a person is coming into their bleeding disorder program and their clinic, that needs to all be recorded. So what's been happening with them on a daily basis or a monthly basis. Heavy menstrual bleeding needs to be included in that if that is an issue for that person, as well as things like microbleeds or any other joint or muscle bleeds as well. There's lots of people with mild or moderate phenotypes that still experience these types of things, but they're not really being recorded. So I think that's a part that needs to start to change so that this data starts to get recorded. We start to understand a lot more about what women are struggling with. So today in Paris, I'm going to be meeting with the French patient organization. So I'm very excited to meet with them and learn about what they're working on and how we could collaborate on things together with the project. And then I'm also attending a research institute this afternoon to learn more about what they are working on in terms of research, in terms of the bleeding disorders, hemophilia, von Willebrand's, and things like that. So I've been really pleasantly surprised because I've had a lot of really great messages and people reaching out from various aspects. So different patients, also healthcare providers, hematologists, and other people just within kind of the health industry in general who are interested in what I'm doing and starting to follow the journey and share my story. So after Mont Blanc, I am heading back to Canada and I have a couple of months at home. So I'll be back to training because in September I'm going to Nepal. So my next climb is a mountain called Manaslu, which is an 8,000 meter mountain. It's the 8th highest mountain in the world. So it will be a new challenge, but I'm very excited to take this message now to that part of the world and continue the journey there. So you can follow along on my Instagram at Maia Letitia, but also on projectelevateher.com. That's where I have a lot of information about the entire project, as well as people are able to donate there, which I encourage people to do as well, because all of these funds are going towards helping women improve quality of life. So this is a very positive outcome.